Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, Nintendo/gaming video for the week of October 24th to October 30th, though. No video game review for this week, though. I'm working on something right now and all that, plus some stuff I gotta do and all that. So really no video game review for this week, though. And I hope some of you are preparing for Halloween, though, whether it's going out with friends and family or trick-or-treating. I do want to say happy Halloween to my subscribers and viewers out there. Hopefully you're staying safe, whether it's, going out trick-or-treating or trick-or-treating while ensuring you're protecting yourself from the coronavirus and all. But either way, though, hopefully you guys out there have a safe and secure Halloween this year, though. And anyway, we got 4 stories to cover, including basically Switch Online with the launch of the N64 games along with Sega Genesis, and some issues that have started to emerge on it. Saber Interactive made a very interesting comment about the Nintendo Switch in a way, so this one's kind of interesting, though. We also wanted to be learning about in regards to the Switch version of GTA Trilogy, which somewhat is not surprising, but it might be disappointing for those who were thinking about the physical version to a certain extent. And of course, basically, Microsoft finally revealed at least a trailer or an overview of the single player portion of Halo Infinite, the campaign trailer and all. And if you're interested in where I got some of this information from and all, I'll have links in the description down below, so when you're watching this on YouTube. But before we get started, though, we'll just do basically, which is the quick My 2 Cent, though, stories that kind of caught my attention, but I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details, though. The first one, obviously, is going to be that Sony had their recent State of Play and all, but I didn't get a chance to watch it. But from what I've been hearing, though, not everybody was proud of this one. I think some people were a little bit disappointed in terms of what Sony had to show in regards of their State of Play. However, one game that did somewhat get people's attention, and it's one I would definitely be keeping an eye out, is that there will be a new entry in the Star Ocean called Star Ocean Definitive Force, though. It's set to come out next year. Although it was announced during Sony's State of Play, there are plans to bring it to the PC and Xbox Series S and X, which is certainly nice. Sadly, though, there are no plans at this time to bring it to the Nintendo Switch, which is a bit unfortunate, though, because I really think RPGs can benefit from the Nintendo Switch, especially with the console handheld hybrid and all. And of course, no word, since we know this is coming to the PC, no word on whether or not this is capable with the Steam Deck or not. I assume it will be, but we'll have to wait and see to know for certain if it will be compatible with the Steam Deck. Somewhat compatible, but there may have to be some adjustments to be made, or not compatible at all. But either way, nice that Star Ocean is getting another entry, though. Hopefully this will go over better than the last one. From what I understand, not everyone was a fan of the last Star Ocean game, though. We also learned that Sony has now formed a PC label for bringing their games over to the PC called, I think, the PlayStation PC, though. This comes off the heels when we were hearing announcements that God of War, the 2018 God of War, is coming over to PC. And honestly, at the end of the day, though, no matter what, this is Sony's decision. If they want to bring their games over to the PC, that's their call. Hell, I'll go as far as saying that if Nintendo ever decides to bring their games to the PC, and I'm not talking about emulation or anything like that, actually publishing their games on the PC, that's their call. At the end of the day, they own the IPs and all. Do I think Nintendo will do that, though? I would say I have doubts given Nintendo's history, but in an age where we're seeing some Microsoft games appear on other systems like Cuphead and Ori and the Will of the Wisps and the Blind Forest, to Nintendo putting some of their IPs on ISO and Android devices, who knows? But in either case, though, it looks like Sony will be bringing some of their games over under the PlayStation PC label, though. No word if God of War Ragnarok will be coming to PC, but I would say if they're bringing a lot of their games to the PC, I would say that one probably will come to the PC, but I'm guessing sometime a little bit later after it's released on the PS4 and the PS5. We also learned that there is a rating for the upcoming Neptuna, Neptunia, and Serena Kagura for the Nintendo Switch called, I think it's called Ninja Wars, though. It was originally announced for the PS, it was originally supposedly exclusive for the PS4, but it's now coming to the Nintendo Switch. What makes this interesting is that supposedly, according to the ESRB rating, and I'm assuming I read this correctly, that it's going to be T-rated, which is kind of interesting, though, because past Serena Kagura games have always been M-rated, though, so I'm a little curious to see why this has got a T-rated. Did they tone it down, the fan service, or anything like that? So I'm somewhat of a little bit curious about that one. We also learned that basically there is a rumor going around that Warner Brothers might be working on their own version of Smash Brothers type of game, and the rumors have ranged from Gandalf to basically Rick and Morty, and from the Rick and Morty to appear on this fighting game, though. No word on official announcements from WB Games, but what makes this kind of interesting is that supposedly there has been a leak and WB had ordered it to take it down. So there is some speculation that this is true, though. Whether it's if it is true, it'll be interesting to see how well this one plays, though, because we've seen games that try to take on Super Smash Brothers. Something like PlayStation All-Stars didn't exactly succeed, though, but we've seen, like, Nickelodeon recently did theirs, so we'll have to wait and see how this one is all going to play out, though. We also learned that the staff at Vicursor Vision were blindsided, not learning the fact that recently Vicursor Vision has now been merged with Activision Blizzard, and not everyone is happy about it, and honestly I can see why, considering that basically the reputation Activision Blizzard has recently earned over the years, especially given the allegations that they are facing, though, ranging from the whole environment and workplace there to their CEO, who has a history of, because they didn't make all the money in the world, he's going to lay off several employees and then give themselves a bonus and all that stuff. So yeah, I can see why not everyone's happy about this at all. And last but not least, there is an interesting rumor, though. Apparently it seems as though basically there is going to be a new video game development for Xbox, but it will be based on the hip-hop group from the Wu-Tang Clan. Now, this isn't the first time the Wu-Tang Clan has been in a video game, though. I think some of you may remember during the PS1 era, there was a game that starred the Wu-Tang Clan that was developed by the same folks who worked on the infamous canceled game Thrill Kill and all. They will also later work on games like WWE Superstars and I believe Mortal Kombat. I think it's called Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, but I'm not 100% sure if that's the official name, though. And then, of course, they aren't the only band that had the one video game, though. I believe the legendary rock band Aerosmith had theirs, I think, with the on-rail shooter Revolution X, though. So, again, no official confirmation, though, but supposedly this is, for what I've been hearing, it's supposed to be like an action RPG, so time will tell if this turns out to be really true or not, though. Okay, with the quick My 2 cent part now done, basically we are now going into into our main story, and we'll start off with the first one, and this one has to do with Microsoft, particularly with Halo Infinite. Now, one of the games that was supposed to launch with basically when Xbox Series S and X, as was supposed to go, was supposed to be Halo Infinite. That was supposed to be their launch title, much like how Breath of the Wild was a launch title for the Nintendo Switch. However, when the first footage of the campaign was shown, though, it got negative response, including one of the character models that turned into sort of a meme, to be exact. I think it was Craig, if I'm saying the name correctly, it really did not sit very well with everyone, to be exact. To the point that basically Microsoft announced that they would delay the game into next year as they work on to polish the game, though. This was kind of a bit risky for Microsoft to do, considering that they would have no real launch title for the Xbox Series S and X, a system that they were hoping to succeed, considering the Xbox One, while certainly did better under Phil Spencer, never really caught up with the PS4, mostly because of a lot of the bad decisions Microsoft made at the beginning with the Xbox One, to be exact, though. Well, now from this point, though, we've only seen footage of basically the campaign, not the campaign, the multiplayer part, which was basically aiming to be more onto the free-to-play side of it, though. And while that certainly looks nice for some folks out there, though, I think some people were worried that they were not going to show any of the campaign, and a lot of it was basically people were concerned about that, considering that we were leaning closer and closer to basically the launch, which they were aiming for a December release, though. Well, recently Microsoft showed us a footage of the campaign, particularly a campaign overview, and I will say that I'm both excited about it, but I'm also somewhat concerned, and I can see why some people could be a little bit concerned about it. First of all, what makes this one interesting to me is that they're aiming for a more open world type of approach, which is a little bit different based on some of the Halo games I've recently played, especially under the Master Chief Collection, though, where it seemed to be focused on, take more of a linear approach. The fact that they're aiming for a more open world approach is kind of interesting indeed, though, and I'm curious to see how they are going to take it into an open world kind of approach. The one point that I think has some people concerned is that it could end up like the kind of open world approach that Ubisoft is known for. Like a whole bunch of unnecessary collections to basically, going to a place to open up all these things in the area, to be exact, though. Although I've seen Ubisoft kind of shy away to that approach somewhat with a lot of their recent open world type of games, though. But I can understand why some people might be concerned about that. And supposedly when you get to these points, though, you can unlock, fast travel and all that stuff. So there's some concerns about it, but I see the potential where it could be good. Especially with one of the new features they showed was basically the grappling hook and all. This was shown during Halo's multiplayer part of it. They showed how that was going to be used in multiplayer, and it'll be interesting to see how that is implemented in the campaign and single player part of it, though. I'm also curious to see how many hours we're going to be able to invest in this, though. And is it going to be open world, like closer to what, say, games like GTA and Saints Row is, or is it going to be open world closer to more like what Ubisoft's type of an open world, which, like I said, not everybody is pleased with that. But based on what they showed off in terms of what they showed for the campaign, though, I would say I'm definitely a bit more on the positive side of it, though. I still have to see more of actual gameplay, though. They showed some overview with a little bit of gameplay, which is nice, but I would like to see like a full-on demonstration of it, though. Either way, though, Halo Infinite is going to be on Game Pass nevertheless, though, so it definitely will at least give you an opportunity to try it out before you decide whether or not it's worth buying, though, or it will probably be on xCloud. We know that's coming to consoles as well, so that should give you an opportunity to try it out on there and see if it's worth the time to download it, though. But overall, I would say my view of the campaign overview that Microsoft showed looks good, though. It has potential, but at the same time, I understand some concerns of it being maybe in the level of that Ubi World openness, that Ubi World's approach to the open world formula, and also it has it does have some potential to succeed. That certainly is a good thing, but I can understand how it could turn some people off who are not a big fan of the open world approach, especially if they don't like Ubisoft's open world. But I will give 343 credit for taking their time to fix on some of the concerns people had when they showed off the first trailer last year, though. And I do applaud them for taking somewhat of a different approach with the Halo franchise, going into more of an open world approach. So time will tell when the game comes out in December, but based on what they showed with the campaign, at least what they showed in the trailer, I would say it certainly has caught my attention on it, and I'm certainly looking forward to hopefully learning a bit more of the campaign as we gear up for the release of Halo Infinite when it comes out this December and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2, and this one has to do with some information that has come out basically regarding the Switch version of GTA Trilogy, particularly with the physical version. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at the GTA Trilogy, or the Switch version of it to be exact though. Now, one of the rumors that started to pop out a little bit last year, but this year though, was the rumors of the fact that Rockstar was going to be working on a GTA trilogy though, that was going to be Vice City, San Andreas, and GTA 3 though. The rumor ranged from it was going to come to multiple consoles, including the Nintendo Switch, and even ISO and Android devices though. And that supposedly it was going to run on Unreal Engine 4 and was going to be a mixture of old and new stuff and all. Well, it sort of became one of the worst kind of kept secrets though, because other sources were pointing this out, claiming they were hearing the exact same thing as well. And then it came to basically in October though, Rockstar revealed the first trailer of it though, and they officially announced the GTA Trilogy, a collection of Vice City, San Andreas, and GTA 3, games that were released during the original, the PS2 era to be exact. And for what they showed though was sort of interesting. It did line up with a lot of the rumors about basically how the game looked though, which did look like a mixture of old and new, to, for what we understand, that it was going to use a control setup similar to what was in GTA 5 and all. And it certainly was a very interesting title to look at though. But one thing we didn't see was basically how the game was going to run on the Nintendo Switch, despite the fact that we know that the game will be coming out on November 11th with a physical version coming out December 6th. While we saw how the game looked like in more of the next-gen console versions, like what we're going to see in the Xbox Series S and X and the PS5, not to mention PC as well, we didn't really have much in terms of what the Switch version was going to look like, outside of the fact that it was going to use somewhat of the motion controls similar to somewhat how LA Noire was when that came over. And of course, one of the big questions, especially with the physical version, was how was all 3 games going to be in it? Is it going to be just an empty box with a piece of paper, or is it going to be one game and we're going to have to download the rest? Well, according to several sites that have recently picked this up, assuming this is accurate and all, it seems as though that those who are thinking about getting the Nintendo Switch version, especially the physical version, you may have to consider the fact that you might have to are going to possibly get a physical version with part of the game in it, and the other part you're going to have to download though. In an article posted on, if I could get it out there, from Video Game Chronicles, it reads about that the physical version of the GTA Trilogy on Switch needs a separate download. It appears that Vice City isn't on the cartridge. According to the article, it reads, quote, "A retail listing of Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the definitive edition on Switch, appears to show that the physical game needs to be partially downloaded though. The Switch version of the game has been listed on the Target website in the US, accompanied by what appears to be the final box art. The cover includes a small message at the bottom which reads, 'Download required, see back.' The back of the box is not shown, so it's not yet clear what this download entails. According to the Switch eShop, the estimated system space will be required to download all 3 games is 22 gigabytes. In theory then, the game could have comfortably fit in a 32 gigabyte cartridge. The issue, however, appears to revolve around Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which seems to require a separate download even with the digital eShop version. The definitive edition is shown that the eShop as a bundle containing its 3 games as a separate product, each marked as not available to purchase on their own. According to each game's own eShop, Grand Theft Auto 3 is 2.2 gigabytes, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is 10.8 gigabytes though. But Grand Theft Auto Vice City is only 119 megabytes. Vice City page included an extra message, not included with the other games, which says the estimated system space will be required to download this game is 6.5 gigabytes. It's not clear why Vice City is being handled differently. One theory is that there may be still some issue regarding its completion, such as licensing soundtracks, but VGC has reached out for Rockstar for a comment. Now, it is worth pointing out that there has been no confirmation at this time from Rockstar, or supposedly there's some reports that Nintendo might be publishing it, which is, if that's true, No word on that though. So if it is true that it's going to be 2 games into one of the cartridge and the other one's that's going to be download, assuming the listing on Target is correct though, it's not as bad, but it is still disappointing nevertheless. The fact that not all 3 games are going to be into not all going to be into the cartridge when the physical version supposedly comes out on December 6th though. But the fact that that's sort of kind of interesting, the fact that 2 of the games are going to be there, which is very interesting indeed compared to what we saw with games like Borderlands Legendary Collection, where only one of the games was in basically the Switch cart, while the other ones, Borderlands the pre-sequel and Borderlands 2, had to be downloaded separately though. So it's kind of interesting, this approach that Rockstar is taking though. But in either case though, there hasn't been any official confirmation, so we're waiting to hear from both Rockstar and possibly Nintendo, assuming the reports are true that they are the ones that are going to be publishing in regards to the Switch version though. One thing I'm still waiting for in regards to the Switch version of GTA Trilogy is, how's it going to look? How's it going to run on the Nintendo Switch? Is it going to run well on the Nintendo Switch? Is it going to run poorly though? And given the fact that LA Noire required a big download for those who've got the Switch version though, this sort of isn't somewhat as shocking though. But still, I can see the argument why this can all fit in a 32 gigabyte. Although it is possible maybe Nintendo and Rockstar may work out a deal where they can figure out a way to get the entire game into the Switch cartridge, but we'll have to wait and see. So overall, assuming this Target listing is correct though in any way, this might sound a bit disappointing for those who are thinking about getting the physical version of GTA Trilogy if they're planning to get it on the Nintendo Switch. I'm not completely shocked by this if this turns out to be true, but I won't deny it is somewhat disappointing indeed though. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 3. And this one has to do with an interesting comment that Saber Interactive have made in regarding the Nintendo Switch, which is, I will say, kind of interesting indeed. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at an interesting comment that Saber Interactive has made in regards to the Nintendo Switch. Now, those who've heard of this company's name before have probably seen them port over several games over to the Nintendo Switch, but one that caught a lot of people's attention was what many thought would be the impossible port, which was basically Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, a game that no one ever thought would come to a console like the Nintendo Switch, but somehow they were able to pull it off. Granted though, it's not going to look as any good as what you would see probably on the PS4 or the PS5, or even for the PC for that matter, let alone the fact it probably isn't going to look as good as, say, now that we know that there is a PS5 version or updated version for the PS5 and Xbox Series S and X, but it's still pretty amazing how they were able to get that game over to the Nintendo Switch. What's more, it's also amazing how companies like Panic Button are able to port games like Doom, Doom Eternal, and Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, to the Nintendo Switch. Obviously, some compromises had to be made in order to make those games run on the Nintendo Switch properly though, but it's still amazing that they were able to get them there. Well, recently, Saber Interactive made an interesting comment about the Nintendo Switch in a way that claims that the Switch maybe don't need a powerful version or a powerful system, at least according to what this employee at Saber Interactive had to say. In an interview he had with Nintendo Everything, when asked about what they would like to see out of an upgraded Nintendo Switch, this person said, quote, "The obvious answer would be overall better hardware with less build and patch size limitations, but I don't think the Switch needs a more powerful version that badly. Saber and many other talented studios have already proven that there is no such thing as an impossible port. Nintendo consoles were never about hardware, they were always about something that boosts your gameplay experience, and I can't wait to see what they come up with next. During the same interview, they asked this person if he believes there's more that can be extracted from the Switch when it comes to hardware. In response, this is what he had to say. Quote, each game we released on the Switch pushed that hardware more than before. World War Z was a bigger challenge than our previous project, and I'm sure our next project will also stand out, but it all depends on the game. Sometimes in the video game industries, the things that look incredibly complex from an outside perspective are actually easier to implement during development. Most of the time, it's the other way around though. The simple things can take an immense amount of time and efforts to get working. At Saber, I feel we reach a great balance in all our Switch ports by delivering amazing gameplay and keeping the game looking great. So, do I agree with what this person said? To some extent, yes. I do actually think that what this person said at Saber Interactive is kind of spot on. As I mentioned before, we've seen impossible ports come to the Nintendo Switch. Games that we never thought would even run on the Switch, they managed to port over. Like I mentioned before, Doom Eternal, Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, though, Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, though, Crisis, for that matter. So there are a lot of games we thought that basically can run on the Nintendo Switch, though, and this also kind of flies in the face of Square Enix and their claim of why they couldn't bring the Kingdom Hearts games to the Nintendo Switch. Now, obviously, no matter how you look at it, though, compromises are going to have to be made, and the most obvious thing is that the games aren't going to look as good as, say, what the PS4, Xbox One, or PS5, Xbox Series S and X, or PC counterparts will probably look. So, no matter how you look at it, compromises certainly had to be made in order to get the game running. But I do agree that it's not impossible to bring these games over. It's just a matter of how to optimize it for that system and compress it and to make it sure it runs properly on something like the Nintendo Switch. Obviously, they would like to see some improvements if a Switch Pro or a Switch 2 does happen, though. But it is nice to hear that it is possible to bring some of these games over to the Nintendo Switch, though. I mean, are there probably games that probably can't run on the Switch at all? I can't say it's not. I can't say I can't disagree with that, though. Again, I'm not a game developer, but it does. But I won't ignore the fact that I can't say that. I'll put it this way: I'm not going to ignore the fact that it is possible to bring some of these games over, as long as you know how, like I mentioned, optimizing and compression. So, overall, the takeaway from this is that I don't completely disagree with this person from Saber Interactive is saying, though. I think it is possible to bring something like a graphically demanding game over to something like the Nintendo Switch or something from a powerful console on there. It's just a matter of optimizing it, compressing it, and making some changes here and there. I mean, Techland recently released Dying Light on the Nintendo Switch, and that game ran well. It's running well on the Nintendo Switch. Granted, it's not going to look as good as the other versions, but it's clear Techland made several compromises in order to make that game run on the Nintendo Switch. And if that's what is needed to make the game run well on the Nintendo Switch, then I'm all for that, though. Granted, it's not going to be the version for everyone. I get that, though. But I certainly am I'm certainly pleased that there are certainly some developers out there that are willing to push the hardware and do what they can to bring these games, port them over to the Nintendo Switch. Nevertheless, though. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to our fourth and final part. And this one has to do with the Switch Online, particularly the expansion pack, though, that has brought the Nintendo 64 games over, but it seems as though there are some issues that not everyone is happy with. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at a situation that has emerged with the Nintendo Switch Online, particularly the expansion pass. Now, the announcement of the Nintendo 64 games and even Sega Genesis games coming to the Nintendo Switch as part of their online services was certainly interesting, as these games were rumored at the time, along with Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and there are reports of that those are still coming, though, along with recent rumors that seem to be popping up that there may be a list of more games coming, about 52 more games for the Sega Mega Drive and maybe 32 for the N64, though. But what got some of the controversy surrounding this expansion pack was when it was announced of the price point, and apparently it shot the price point up to like $50 here in the US, though, at least for, I think, the individual and the family pass, or the family pass, even more. This caused some people not to be pleased about it, and going as far as to downvote a trailer for the Nintendo Switch Online for the expansion pass, though. Well, the games have come out, though, and I've recently got some of these games, though, and while I haven't really experienced anything based on my time with, Mario Kart 64, it seems as though that issues have started to emerge from this, though, and it's certainly not sitting well with everyone. In an article, if I can get it out, posted on Nintendo Life, it reads that, quote, Nintendo's online brand new expansion pack subscription has finally launched, giving members who sign up to the service access of lineup of classic N64 and Sega Mega Drive system titles, or Sega Genesis, though. However, according to some folks online, the new service is having teetering problems at this early stage, with reports of input lag and frame rate issue among the noise. In addition to these general problems, it seems some games also have more specific issue. As reported by our pals over at Eurogame, Mario Kart 64 is having an issue related to the save ghost data, something which requires players to have an N64 memory pack back in the day and hasn't. It seems had a workaround implement in this emulated version. Super Mario 64 is also missing the rumble feature that appeared in the Japanese expansion version of the game. Rather than being a specific technical issue, however, the Japanese version of Super Mario 64 is the Shin.to one, which was updated with Rumble Pack support. So if you want this feature, it appears you just need to grab the Japanese Expansion Pass app, so they check out how to do that, though. Sin and Punishment has been reported to have some controls issues involving how it mapped its staffing, strafing. In the original N64 release, the staffing, or STRFE, left and right action were mapped to the yellow control buttons, and in this emulated versions, these are replicated on the Switch face button. However, the Switch version has you pressing the right trigger to shoot, which then remaps the face buttons at the same time. This led to the right STRAFE no longer working on the face button. However, you can also use the D-pad to staff, STRAFE. Apologize for not saying the name correctly, though. So besides being a little awkward, this isn't really a huge issue. Further to these specific issues, there are apparently some frame rate and sound problems with Mario Kart 64. We played the game briefly ourselves and experienced the soundtrack stopping and starting at random, so that definitely is an issue. Not sure based on my time with it, though. I have learned that if you push the L button, you can lower the volume on the music or turn it off entirely. So that's just based on my time with the Mario Kart 64, though. So that's definitely an issue, but we yet noticed any frame rate problems so far. Frame rate issues are also being reported in relation to Star Fox 64 and Yoshi's Story, and Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time are apparently suffering from some control lag, although we have to say from our admittedly short time spending on the games in question, we haven't had a single noticeable frame rate issue so far, and the input lag, well, we haven't felt that as a noticeable problem. In related to input lag report, GameXplain has put out a video addressing the input lag issue, which seems to confirm that it's minimum at worst. Our video team also looked into it, and the results suggest input lag in Mario 64, for example, is near identical to that of Super Mario 3D All-Stars. There's also a very obvious issue with reduced fog levels in some N64 games on Switch. Not so much of a problem that's going to stop you enjoying the game. This is more of an aesthetic issue, and as you can see, they have pictures of it though. With the Wii U on the left and the Switch on the right, the lack of fog is making for some rather fudgy vista in places. Wii U emulation had its own issue in regard, so neither seems optional. We've also seen tweets regarding online performance, but these tweets have been shot down by other players though. They pointed out some of the tweets that showed pictures of Ocarina of Time versus Wii Virtual Console versus Switch versus N64 though. They talked about the game data issue though. One person wrote about the controls saying, quote, "Cons, the button map for N64 on Nintendo Switch is so terrible that I'm still in belief that there is no option to remap. Pros, Star Fox 64 aged so gracefully, it's ridiculous." Now, there's been no word at this time from Nintendo at this time in regarding these issues though. It's possible they could be working on them and all that stuff, so I don't know at this moment though. Do I think there are some issues that Nintendo does need to be addressed? Of course. I've yet to experience any major problems, especially with my time playing Mario Kart 64. I haven't really experienced any input lag or anything like that. I've yet to try out any of the other games, so I'll have to see if I'm experiencing anything with that one or not, though. But if what they're saying is true, then yeah, obviously this isn't a great way to start out with your launching of these N64 games on the Nintendo Switch, though. So yeah, not a great start for Nintendo indeed, especially adding to the price point and all. As far as the button mapping though, that criticism I do actually have to agree, and a lot of it has to do with the way the N64 controller was shaped back then compared to what the Switch Pro controller is. Now, I don't have a problem playing NES or Super NES games using the Switch Pro controllers, considering that the SNES controller is very similar to what the Switch Pro controller looks and all in terms of button placements and all. I'm not bothered with that one though, but I could see where it could be an issue with something like the Nintendo 64 games, given the way the buttons were set up on that one. So I do think there is some criticism level towards this though, and as far as I do remember when some of these N64 games and all were sold on the Wii U under the Virtual Console though, I do think you had the ability to change some of the buttons and all, which I just find it odd Nintendo didn't add that in as part of this expansion pack. You would think that they will allow you the opportunity to at least map or change some of the button setup so it could fit the game, so it could work well with the Pro Controller or the Joy-Cons if you're using those to be exact, if you decide not to spend money on the the N64 controller or the Sega Genesis controller. So I do think in terms of the control schemes and the not having the ability to maybe remap some of the buttons though, I think that is a fair criticism to make though, and I really think Nintendo should had basically give us the opportunity to remap some of the buttons in the game into the controller though. So overall, obviously not a great start for Nintendo's Switch Online expansion pass though. It's clear if what we're hearing is true, they have their work cut out though, ranging from addressing some of the issues of games that require the memory pack though, or use the rumble pack, to basically maybe some of the frame rate issues though. Again, based on my time with Mario Kart 64, I haven't seen any frame rate issues, but I can understand. But again, some might have experienced it though, so I do think that Nintendo definitely is going to have to address some of these problems though. If they really want to get this to work though, they're going to have to fix this though, and look at how they're going to handle it if they're going to bring more titles over, more N64 titles over to Switch's online service to be exact. And yes, last but not least though, I think having the option to map the buttons to our Switch controllers, giving us the ability to change some of the change some of the mapping to the buttons and all. Should be something that they should have added, though, considering how the N64 controller was set up compared to how the NES and Super NES controllers were. So, yeah, I think that is a legitimate criticism, but point is, Nintendo definitely has their work cut out as far as the expansion pack, though. Okay, this concludes It's My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about the campaign overview for Halo Infinite, though? Were you pleased with what Microsoft and 343 Industry has shown, though? Are you looking forward to getting this game when it comes out, whether it's through Game Pass or not? Or do you have some concerns about the campaign for Halo Infinite? What are your thoughts about the situation surrounding the Switch version of GTA Trilogy? Does the fact that a download requirement, even though there might probably will be a physical version, does that bother you in any way? Does it not bother you at all, though? Does this change any plans of you getting the physical version? Are you going to go with the digital version instead? Or are you going to go pick up GTA Trilogy on another system instead if you're planning to get it, though? What are your thoughts about Saber Interactive's comments about that there's no such thing as an impossible port to the Nintendo Switch? Do you think they are right about that? Do you think it is possible to bring some of these games over to the Switch, provided that you optimize it and compress it, though? Or do you think that there are impossible games that you think really cannot run on the Nintendo Switch at all? And what are your thoughts about the situation surrounding the Switch Online expansion pack, though? Have you experienced any lag or any input problems or audio problems, to be exact, though? Or have you not experienced anything at all? Or were you willing to pay the money to play N64 or Sega Genesis games, Sega Genesis games on the Nintendo Switch, or do you don't think it's worth the money at all? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You can do it through PayPal Me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video, assuming you're watching this on YouTube. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, wish you all a good day then.